Okay, folks, we're back. But yeah, as you were saying, Rob.
But even though I think that the guys from Ghost Hunters, when they were originally doing this on their own before TV got involved, they had their best intentions. And if you watch the early seasons, you'll notice that they did nothing but residential cases, and they debunked about 85% of their findings. And eventually, it evolved into nothing but famous locations, and it was
Hmm.
considered a bad show if they didn't pull out at least 4 EVPs and catch 7 anomalies on camera. And anybody that's done this in the real world knows that that's just not how it works. So it's
Yeah.
I've
Well,
taken more than one pot shot at all of them at this point, and I'll probably continue to do so because even though they did make this more socially acceptable for us to do,
right.
and I'll say it that way, it damages the reputation of all of those out here because they look at everybody as a huckster, just like they are on TV, looking to get ratings or popularity or fame or insert what it is here.
Well, here's my thing. I'm actually a big supporter of Ghost Adventures, and I'll get into why here in a second. But even they would tell you, if they're being honest, that they ham shit up for ratings. Even they would Aaron himself, Aaron Goodwin,
Oh
got
yeah,
in
well they
trouble
all do.
on a radio show because he came out and pretty much admitted it. Now, the reason that I still support them though is because of the stuff they do when they're not on camera is very, very different.
Right.
They actually investigate more like you and I do when they're not on camera.
Right. And I would honestly, and I'm not disagreeing with you because, what they do for the client is what's the important part after all.
Yeah.
But I think what we're running into in life today is we need everything to be so sensationalized. People,
Yeah.
they need the sensationalized
Well,
television.
see, and here's
That it,
here's been my biggest problem, and I think you'll probably agree on this. My biggest problem with the TV shows isn't the TV shows themselves. My biggest problem with the TV shows is there are like 99% idiots out there that see these TV shows, think they know what to do, and get involved in the paranormal field and just cause problems.
yes. Oh, I agree. There's a lot of people out there that have no idea what they're doing, and we have to come in and actually mop up the mess.
Yeah.
It's ironic, Jay. After as long as I've been doing this, and I've trained people, and I've helped other teams start, and yeah, I mean, you and I have had very long talks about theory and everything else. When people today come up to me and say, what would you say if I told you I wanted to be a paranormal investigator? What should I do? I said, forget it. Don't do it. Because it's dangerous, and people don't realize how dangerous it is. Because when you first start out, you have no clue what you're doing. You're going to cause a lot of problems, and then after you've been doing this long enough and you do know what you're doing, you're going in and cleaning up other people's messes about 8 out of 10 times. So I mean, I just tell
Yeah.
people it's not what you think it is. You know.
Well, I've actually given this advice, which is a little bit. I think this is where you and I differ a little bit. I've always told people if you want to get into the paranormal field, don't go out by yourself. Don't
Right.
just start a team of rookies. Hook up with somebody that actually knows what they're doing so you have somebody to learn from. Because it is not like it is on TV.
Right. Yeah, and here's the thing. It's you know, I don't want to scare people away from this, but if you tell somebody that type of information and they're so interested in it, it kind of weeds out the ones that are trying to half-heartedly do it anyway.
That's true.
People that come into this, they need to realize that they're making a commitment to something. If you get involved with a case where you have a very, very dark or a demonic entity, you may have issues with that entity well past the time you leave that person's house. And there have been cases where investigators themselves have been tortured and tormented by these spirits for years. So you're really putting your neck on the line. You're putting your and pardon my language for saying this, but you're putting your ass on the line with it. And they need to realize that those are the risks. No rookie, brand new investigator should be starting a team full of rookie investigators. I agree with you 100%. Get under the hand of somebody that's been doing this for a long time. You don't have to make the same mistakes that we did when we started. Because, Jay, if you're anything like me, there wasn't really a roadmap for this when I got in this. You know what I mean? This was something that was done
No,
really hush-hush. It was not touched. People didn't
Yeah, when I started
talk
this,
about it. You didn't admit you were a ghost hunter.
when I started this, like there was no TV shows. It wasn't. It was
Oh
still
yeah.
kind of
See, I've been
like
doing
very
this since I've been
taboo.
doing it for 30 years.
I've been doing it for like 26. I mean, like
Yes, you
if
and
I
I
want
have
to be
about the same number
really
of hash
honest,
marks. Yeah.
if I want to be really honest, I've actually been dealing with the paranormal since I was 5 years old. But as a paranormal quote unquote, I've been doing it for about 25, 26 years.
Right. Yeah, and
But
but the whole point is people don't have to make the same mistakes that we did.
no,
They
no,
don't
they
have
don't.
to run into the same speed bumps that we have. They actually have the opportunity to learn from our experience, to learn how things should be done, need to be done, the proper methods, and then expand on those methods. I love getting new people on the team because they're full of fresh ideas, and I
Hmm.
always encourage new team members. Look, I want you to be as vocal as the people that have been on this team for 5 years because you are the fresh look. You are the new ideas. The people that are here have become set in the way that we do things. We need that fresh blood.
Yep.
But at the same time, when you come into this, you can't do it half-heartedly. You have to be in for a penny, in for a pound.
Yeah, and that's why it's always been a really big pet peeve of mine. People treating this like it's a lark, like it's a hobby. It's a calling. It's like being a priest. It really is. It's like you have to be called by God, the Great Spirit, whatever you want to call it, or fate, or whatever, to do this work.
Right.
It is not a joke. It is not a hobby. It is not something that's just there for your entertainment.
Yep.
It truly is a calling. You have to be called to do this. If you have not been called to do this, then you're just wasting yours and everybody else's time.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, and that's it. You're not only wasting people's times, but you could be interfering with them helping somebody that has a serious need.
Exactly. And that's
So,
been my other thing on the show that I cuss on the show, by the way.
no, that's fine.
So you don't have to censor yourself on the show. But
Right.
I've gone off and cursed up a storm about this before that we have to be so very careful about what we do as paranormal investigators, not just for the spirits, but also for living clients, because, like it or not, what we do reflects on the people that are coming after us.
Right.
So if it really pisses me off when I hear stories like those 7 jerks from Texas who burnt down that plantation in New Orleans.
Oh yeah,
I don't
that
know
was
if you're.
awful. Yeah, I sure did. That was just
They
terrible.
they got drunk and stoned before and during the investigation. Weren't happy with the fact they weren't getting evidence. Gee, I wonder why. And then lit candles in the place, and the curtains caught on fire, and they burnt the place to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, for like 6 months, no investigation was allowed in New Orleans, one of the
Oh yeah.
most haunted cities in America.
Yeah. And it's all because somebody wanted to dick around and just halfway do things. And you just
Yeah.
cannot let that happen. You guys, it used to be cemeteries were a great place to train and to work, but because people have been destroying headstones. I mean,
Oh yeah. In fact, that event I told you about at Glendale Cemetery, the reason they had that event, and it was very reasonably priced, by the way. It was only $10 per person,
oh,
but
that's awesome.
they had like easily 300 people. But the whole reason they had that event was because of vandalism,
Yeah.
and because they were trying to restore this gorgeous bell tower, and but people had gone in there and had destroyed some of the headstones and stuff, and it was just sad. But I agree with you. It is a great place actually to learn, but if you're going to go there with respect, because
Absolutely.
it is very much like going into somebody's home, because
Yeah.
that's where they reside.
Yeah, and well, you technically are going into their home, and that's why I also say that you have to do this on a very respectful level. I don't believe in provocation because I'm sitting here in my living room right now, and if I saw somebody walk in and start talking to my mother like I see some of these investigators do, I'm going to beat the shit out of this dude. I'm sorry, I'm going to hurt him.
Oh yeah.
That's just it. So you may get some type of activity, but it's not going to be the activity that you want to have. You have an opportunity to build an actual relationship, an actual rapport with the spirit. And that's what needs to happen. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
like me, the only time I ever provoke is when I am certain by my own feelings and by the evidence that what we're dealing with is absolutely evil. I will provoke the hell out of that guy
right.
because they feed on fear, and the only way to make them weaker is to show none.
Right. But make sure you know what you're doing. There's an
Exactly.
asterisk on that, because if you go in there and you are not sure of how you have to handle things, and you're not sure of how you can handle things, and you don't know the proper way to handle things, you're opening yourself up to get hurt.
Yeah, you really are. And being a shaman, of course, I know how to protect myself. That's the big asterisk there. I know what I'm doing, people. Don't just do that because I said it, you know.
Right. Right. So, and I'm in the habit of putting out that disclaimer because I can just see somebody getting possessed and they say, well, Rob said, well, no, Rob said this,
Exactly.
Make sure you know
Exactly.
what the hell you're doing before you try to do this, because if not, you're just asking for trouble. And then somebody like me has to go in and put my neck on the line to bail your butt out.
Let me ask you this because this is a situation I actually have been running into a couple times recently. Have you ever been called on a residential where you couldn't help the people for whatever reason?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it happens. You give them the proper advice that they need, and you give them the proper tools and influencing yourself, and they basically repeat the behavior that caused it in the first place.
Yeah.
And it happens, and it's very frustrating on our part because, once again, we're putting our time, our effort, our money, our equipment, and in some places our own safety at risk to help these people.
Yeah.
And they won't make the changes that are needed to make sure it doesn't come back. And
Well, with me, I've never run into that per se. Like my issue, like what's happened recently is like I've been contacted by people that want me to come do a housing, but they're like outside my travel radius, and that's my biggest issue right now. Um, I think it's something in how I explain the whole situation to people that they really understand before I even do anything that this is what you're going to be left with,
right,
and this
right.
is what your responsibility is going to be. So I haven't really run into that situation yet. Um,
Yeah, that's frustrating as an investigator. Now, the situation where it is outside of a comfortable radius for travel. I've a couple of times before kind of worked within a couple of different networks of people that I just know,
hmm
and it helps when you've got people that live in different states that you trust their judgment and their abilities through working
Oh
with
yeah,
them.
paranormal unity all the way.
Yeah, para-unity. People do not understand how important it is to have that unity. At the same time, you also have to know who to refer them to and who not to, for the simple fact that you don't want your reputation sullied by somebody that just doesn't know what they're doing. Don't just blindly refer them to somebody because you're putting your endorsement on that person.
Exactly, exactly. And that goes back to the whole, we have to be careful about what we do thing.
Right. Right.
Yeah, but so I know you were involved. Is it one or two movies?
We have a second one right now that's kind of on the back burner. I'm involved in a documentary that's going to be coming out hopefully in March if everything goes well. It's called Ghost of Fire 2, and it's the story of the Molly Maguires and the strife that they had in the town of Centralia, Pennsylvania. If anybody out there, any of your listeners are familiar with the movie or the game Silent Hill was based off of this city. And I've actually done
Yeah.
five investigations there now. Each time we go up for 3-day strands at a time. And I've done 2 live radio spots from there with paranormal. But working with Robin with Robin Marie was a fantastic adventure up there. And she has actually put this is her second documentary on the place, and she just informed me here within the past year that she's actually giving me second billing only to her in the movie, which I thought was just remarkable. It totally, completely caught me off guard. But we're looking forward to being able to tell the story of the Molly Maguires and the way that they had to literally fight tooth and nail to get any type of rights for coal miners in that area. And it was really just a time when the miners themselves were paid in what was called company script. The only place that you could use company script was at the company store, so you were literally slaves to the coal mines because your rent and everything was paid in script, and it was all paid right back to the coal mines. So yeah, it was a completely different thing. But I've got to tell you, it's amazing being in a town that is a modern day ghost town, where there's literally a coal mine right under the entire city that's burning and has been for years.
Oh yeah, there's a place here actually that we've been trying for years to get something going there. It's a town called Rittman here in Ohio.
Oh, yeah.
And it's actually the location of the original Morton Salt Factory.
Oh, wow.
And there's salt mines underneath the entire town, and a lot of them are collapsing.
Wow.
And, as I'm sure you know, you introduce any kind of atmospheric change like that, you're going to increase paranormal activity, and that's kind of what's been going on. But the catch-22 is because a lot of the stuff is sinking, it's no longer safe, and we haven't been able to get in there, yada, yada, yada.
Right. Yeah, and you've got to be careful when you go into areas like that as well. I mean, the last time that we were at Centralia, I actually walked through a sinkhole and didn't realize it. It literally was so large that it felt like I was just walking down this little embankment, and when I got to the other side and had to walk back up, I realized that I'd walked probably about 40 yards across a sinkhole. And so,
wow.
Yeah, and it's things like that that are just flat out dangerous. People don't realize how dangerous it actually is, but you've got to be real careful when you're on location. Safety is key.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And you have to be very aware of your environment too. Like, I'll give you another example. With my former team, before I founded Ghost Wolf Paranormal, we did an investigation at the Bisman building in downtown Mansfield, which is world famous. It's been on my ghost story a few times. And Ghost Hunters has been there. There's a story there, by the way. But I'll get into that in a minute. But the building itself is pretty stable, but there are some dangers that you have to be aware of there because, like, for example, I think it's the second or third floor, there's one wing of the building that has no windows in it.
Oh, wow.
So if you were to lean against it, like, you were trying to lean against the window, you would go right through the freaking window.
Oh, yeah. And it's very easy to do, to not pay attention and go to prop yourself up against something.
Exactly.
So, yeah, always know your surroundings, always know the history of where you are, and make sure that you have permission to be there. 3 big keys.
Oh, yeah, do not at all trespass, people. Trust me, it is not worth it. Especially when it's so easy, actually, to get people's permission to do an investigation. It is surprisingly easy nowadays.
Oh, yeah.
It's just a matter of finding the right person and talking to them.
Yep.
There's abandoned buildings like all over in ghost towns all over Ohio, and a lot of them we haven't investigated simply because we just don't know who to talk to.
Oh, yeah.
But and this is a kind of a pro tip, by the way. If you're dealing with a ghost town or uncharted property, so to speak, and you don't know who to talk to, here's a helpful hint: locate the local sheriff.
Yeah, they can tell you exactly where you need to go, who you need to talk to, and any special documentation that you may need.
Exactly. And it's not always free. Sometimes you do have to pay for it.
Right. Yeah, but that's always on the side of better safe than sorry. Nobody wants to go to jail for their passion,
Yeah, exactly. So it's never a wise idea to trespass. I have before. I'll be honest. I have trespassed to investigate a place because you know we all have those places in the paranormal field that we're just drawn to for whatever reason. And I had one of those places, and I did kind of trespass to go there, but still, don't do it. Learn from my mistake. you don't need the woo woo in the middle of an investigation. Trust me.
Yeah, for real. Not to mention the fact that it just flat out interferes with your EVP sessions. You hear that siren going in the background, and you can't turn the recorder off when the handcuffs are on. It's terrible.
Yeah, it's horrible. Yeah, and then they take your gear, which sucks because then you've got to get it out of, impound or whatever they call it.
Yeah, police custody.
But yeah, and once again that goes back to we got to be careful about what we do because who knows if you trespass on a place and I try to investigate there, I might get denied just because you trespass there.
Absolutely, it gives us all a black eye, and that's the key. That's the real point. It gives us all a very, very bad reputation.
Yeah, and so especially I know Rob is as passionate about the paranormal as I am, so I'm kind of preaching the choir here, but no, we just do. We got to be so careful about what we do, not only for our sakes, but for the sakes of those that might come after us too.
Right. Yeah, and it's important for us to remember that we have to preserve the right for people to do, and it's not actually a right; it's a privilege to get to do this stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But we need to preserve that to where other people will have the opportunity to do what we're doing and to experience what we have, and actually lay even further groundwork.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And if you do it right, you'll have a situation like we had where we had a strong working relationship with the location for years because we did it right. We got their permission to be there, and we included them in our investigations. It was awesome. It was awesome. And then, unfortunately, like happens many times, personalities get in the way, and that situation isn't viable anymore. But still, there is a wrong, right way to do everything.
Right. And what we need to do is make sure that we hold as close to the right way as we possibly can.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, you know what? I think the next time you guys go to Centralia, I might tag along.
Yeah, well, next time we go, it'll be just to investigate because we've completed the filming project. But it is an area I'd love to go back to and just get to experience. We actually went to an old hangout of the Molly Maguires. It's actually a pub and grill now. And I'm looking forward to getting to go back there just for the food and the atmosphere. It's amazing. But, it's funny when people, you start talking about the Mollies and asking questions. They don't want to discuss it. It's still a very, very heated topic in that area. So, it's, and that made our jobs even more difficult, because we weren't able to really pull as much information as we would have liked to. And, people still hold their, old secrets close to heart.
Yeah, for sure. But, in a lot of I've had a similar situation too. Actually, kind of a similar story because it was about people fighting for rights. There's a location in Mansfield, Ohio called the Women's Club.
Mm-hmm.
And it was actually, forget the lady's name. I'm horrible with names, you know this. But I forget the lady's name, but she was the founder of the women's suffrage movement during the 1800s, which was the precursor to women's rights. It was they were fighting for the women's right to work and to vote.
Right.
And during that time, many of these women were, as I'm sure you can imagine, abused. In fact, at that time, it was legal for a husband to beat his wife with a mop handle.
Yep.
And so women didn't have a lot of rights, and she founded this movement. And her husband, by the way, was an amazing man because he fully supported her. In fact, he had this house built for her, and on her when she was close to her death, she had a will drawn up, and the will still holds true today that any woman that is battered or abused can stay in this house.
Nice.
It's
good to see that. Really
it is also suspected that it may or may not have been part of the Underground Railroad.
Right. And those types of freedom houses are amazing.
Absolutely, and it's a great location. We've tried to get back in there, with my new team and everything. It's one of those situations where it's just hard to get a hold of anybody.
Oh yeah, we all run into that too.
Yeah, so we haven't been in there yet, but I'm hopeful that we will sometime. And it's just a great location, but we did run into a lot of that too. That whole because of the history of the place, just kind of running into that kind of suspicion by the spirits. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Well, it's just it's sad when people can damage the investigators' reputations, make it hard for us to get into places, and even cause severings of very old relationships like the one that you'd mentioned before. But those little hidden jewels of places, like the place you mentioned, they're all over the place. You just got to know where to look.
Oh yeah, ghost towns in particular are very thriving supernatural places that nobody is investigating. I don't understand how there is not a TV show about ghost towns alone. The state of California, for example, has 250 registered ghost towns.
Yep.
That's just the registered ones.
Yeah, not to mention the ones that are completely forgotten to time.
And here in Ohio, I have like 8 within driving distance.
Yeah. It's amazing. Maybe that's something that you and I ought to do as a weekend project here before long. Get a few, of our close team members together and do a joint run through a few of these ghost towns and see what we can find and just see what's there. It'd be a lot of fun.
Oh, for sure. I'd be totally down with that. Totally. Yeah, because that's like, I even do a web series, as you know, Rob, that's about that. It's about those forgotten places that aren't mainstream because of the TV shows that have been kind of overlooked or forgotten.
Well, that's just apt resources for us. That's the thing.
Exactly.
Exactly. Look for them. It's just a way to go in and find places where there are a lot of resources. And when I'm talking resources, I'm talking spirits and activity that we can actually go in and tap and see what we can discover. So that's something you and I might want to talk about, maybe off air, and make a few plans on in the future.
Oh, for sure.
My team would definitely be interested in doing it.
Oh, for sure. I know we would. In fact, I've got some places in mind.
I'll have your people call my people, and our people will decide what.
We'll do lunch.
We'll hook up. We'll talk.
We'll do lunch.
Here's the thing. If I win the Powerball tonight, then I'll have my people call your people. But since most likely none of us that need the money you're going to win it, it's going to be somebody wealthy that bought 10,000 tickets. Then we're probably just have to be me and you sitting on Skype between breaks at lunch or something. And
exactly. Oh, but yeah, I definitely like that idea. I'm definitely down with that. That's right in my wheelhouse because, like I said, I know you are too, but I'm a big history nut. But I've kind of got a talent for finding the hidden stories behind some of these places. Like key example is Rogues Hollow. Some of the history I found out about that place that isn't kind of general knowledge is it earned its name. First of all, it was an actual outlaw town. Yeah. Much like Deadwood was. They technically weren't a legal town. They weren't supposed to be built there. And some of the biggest outlaws, lawmen, and gunfighters actually stayed in that town before heading west.
Yeah, I'm sure you and I could get a lot of entertainment and enjoyment out of doing that. So,
Oh, absolutely.
but, I've got a few other projects going on right now, so we're going to have to try to figure out how to factor in time. We've got an investigation of a local business coming up in 2 weeks, actually.
Oh yeah, tell us about what you got coming up. As far as things you can talk about, anyways.
Sure, sure. We're working with a local business. I can't really release too much of the information yet because I've still got to get the paperwork done. But it at one point was an old hotel, and we do know of at least 2 deaths that occurred in it through our historical searches. In 2 weeks, we're going to be going in to do a full-blown investigation on it, and I'm really excited about that. In addition to that, of course, I'm working hard with Living Paranormal as far as getting future guests and just enjoying learning more about everyday life of other investigators, as well as the celebs that we get in from time to time. A new development. I kind of touched with this one with you before we came on air, but the radio station that I was DJing at on the internet is closing down. I have gone into an agreement with 2 others that were associated with the stations, and we have actually taken over a station called Freedom Rocks Radio. And I'm now a co-owner, so I'll be working on that. And I've also got a club that I own in a game called Second Life, where I'm also going to.
I'm familiar with Second Life.
Yeah, I've got my own club that is going to be starting back up within about a month. So, yeah, a lot of different irons in the fire for me right now, but I'm always looking for something else. We're in talks right now with a plantation in Tennessee about the possibility of coming out and doing an event as far as investigation and so forth. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunity there for us in the paranormal field, plus outside of that realm, as far as everything else that I'm working on. So it's just been a really enjoyable run. A lot of people that do know me know that I was recently divorced. I do have a wonderful girlfriend now, and she and I are having a lot of fun doing a lot of this stuff together. So it's just been a really, really different situation for me here of late. It's a good thing.
That's awesome. Yeah, speaking of plantations, we've got one kind of in the works too. Just outside of Charlotte, or not Charlotte, Charleston, South Carolina.
Wow, good deal. And we're looking forward to it. This one's never been like professionally investigated. They've done some.
Yeah, neither has this one.
So it should be an amazing opportunity.
And and the crazy thing is, I'm sure this is probably true with yours too, is like, and this kind of goes back to the whole forgotten and overlooked places, is this is like a place you would think would be on TV.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But for whatever reason, it just isn't.
Yeah.
And,
it doesn't have that public draw for some reason.
Yeah.
So a lot of different things going on for me right now, but I'm just loving life and enjoying it, and still get to have the fun of being an investigator on top of everything else. There's a lot of change, but change is usually a good thing.
Oh, absolutely.
So, I'm not looking forward to getting any haunted dolls before anybody out there asks if I want one. No, thank you. You can keep those yourself. I'm good. Really, no, perfectly fine.
Okay. I'm going to admit something here. There are 3 things that creep me out, particularly on paranormal investigations. Dolls, particularly porcelain ones, creep me out. I'm not afraid of anything, but they do creep me out. And the reason why is because ages ago, dolls weren't originally toys. They were actually constructed to be vessels for spirits. That was their original purpose. So, yeah, they freak me out a little bit. Wax figures is another one that creeped me out. But that one is mainly because I saw the old...
the House of Wax, the
old Vincent Price Boris Karloff thing, where like there were dead bodies inside the wax figures or whatever, and mannequins. Like, and I don't mean
I'm not
like
a big fan of them.
store. I don't mean like store mannequins. I don't have a problem with those. I mean like the kind that you see in like historic places, like museums in particular,
Oh yeah,
where like they'll be dressed up in the original uniform of like a firefighter at the fire museum, for example.
yeah.
And by the way, there's something going on there because we've actually seen those things move.
And I'm done. Okay. You
Yeah,
guys have fun with
exactly.
that one. I want no. I mean, I'll go in and investigate it, of course, but I won't be comfortable the whole time.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I don't think it's an accident that most of the investigating actually happens far away from those things.
Yeah.
It's like on the other side of the building.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I yeah, those things it creep me out a little bit. I will admit, I'm not afraid. Okay, so don't get it twisted. You're not going to freak me out by bringing a mannequin over house, wax figure or whatever. But
For the record, I am more than man enough to admit that that would completely freak me out. Actually, I've had a team member do that to me once. We were we were investigating Old South Pittsburgh Hospital in South Pittsburgh, Tennessee. Great location, by the way, Jay. If we ever go back, I'd love for you to come down there.
oh, absolutely.
It's amazing. You
I
actually
haven't been yet, actually.
it's a 22-hour lock-in.
Ooh,
You actually
yes.
sleep in the hospital. You stay have some mattresses and things of that nature. You can bring inflatable mattresses as well. But it has to be the most haunted location that I've ever been in. But they do have a mannequin in there that they used to have set up on one of the hospital beds, and I go walking down the hallway, and one of my investigators, Kelly, comes walking around the corner, and she's actually kind of wearing the mannequin. She's got her arms in where its arms are. So here's this mannequin walking down, and I swear I almost took its head off. I almost took a swing at it until I realized what it was. So yeah, it was not a highlight. Actually, another time I was there I went with a different team a while back. And you know me, I'm like you. I'm I call myself the paranormal Marine. I'm the first one into the room. I'm the last one out. I always volunteer for the dangerous mission.
Yep.
And they were looking for somebody to put in a room alone. Now, for the record, I don't believe in investigating by yourself. Even if you're a long-term investigator, you need somebody there to verify what happens and to corroborate what you do fine. But they had me with a ton of cameras on me. Okay, so they took me and put me in the straitjacket. And I got laid down on the bed. Next thing I know, they're tucking my legs in with the sheets. Now, I can't move at this point, so I'm kind of helpless laying there, okay? About 15 minutes into the EVP session, I'm just in there asking questions like I've been brought in. I'm kind of doing almost call a role play, like I was actually brought in as a patient.
Mm-hmm.
I see the door open, and it's pitch black. I can't really see much. And I'm like, surely they're not coming to get me already. There's no way they're coming to get me this quick. And all of a sudden, I just see this hand drop down towards my chest, and they set a baby doll on my chest and turned around and walked out of the room and shut the door.
Wow.
Oh,
Yeah.
my God. And, okay, at first, it freaked me out. I'm not going to lie. It did scare me. All right, it really did. But I actually took that and made that part of the EVP work. I was like, you see, man, they're trying to break me. They're trying to break me, man. Did anybody try to break you here? Did they try to break your will? And I turned that into part of the EVP work. And we actually caught some EVPs. I can't release it because it's property of that team.
Right.
But we actually got some EVPs after that point. They did it as a practical joke, but it ended up working out exceptionally well with, the spirit that was there because it kind of gave that kinship. So, yeah. Scared me half to death, though, man. I'm sitting there staring at that doll. I bet my eyes were as big as a cartoon character's.
Okay, I'm going to be a little braggadocious here.
All right.
This is something my team, Ghosts of Paranormal, has run into lately. We're getting our name called on other people's EVPs.
My name has shown up on other EVPs of places that I've been. So, yeah, it does happen. It really
Well,
does.
here's the thing, and I actually did a live EVP session on the show about this, and I asked them straight out because they kept saying Ghost of Paranormal I was using one of the few apps that I actually trust,
Mm-hmm.
that does ITC,
Yeah.
and Ghost Wolf Paranormal kept coming across, or Ghost Wolf, and I said, "Is the reason that you keep calling our name because you like us?" And they're like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Okay, well, are we like famous or something on your side?" And they're like, "Oh yeah."
Oh, that's good to know, man. That's very
And
good to know.
I was very proud of that. You know, like I don't care if I'm ever on TV. You know, it would be great, granted, but like
Right.
just the fact that they're so accepting of us on the other side is total validation to me.
Well, that and it helps your cause because as you go into places, if your name is known, if they know that you're going to be coming in respectful, you've got a better chance of getting the answers that you need.
Right. And like the whole point is I think everybody should strive for that. You know, like stop provoking, stop doing the stupid shit you see on TV and just, you know, go in there with respect and just kind of be yourself.
Oh, yeah. Best way to do it. Sit down and talk and just be a human being.
Exactly. What's wrong with that? You know?
It's always
But
amazing. People feel like they have to put on this big, horse and pony show. And truth of the matter is, all you need to do is just sit down and talk.
exactly. And I think, I mean, I coming from like because you know I produce and direct my own web series, and it's given me some insight. I'll say. So I do get why they would ham things up for ratings because it does make for interesting quote unquote TV. But it's a double edged sword because it gives a false impression of what an investigation is actually like. And I'm fortunate enough that I can say that in the 3 or I think going on 4 years now that I've had this team together, we've never walked away from an investigation empty-handed.
Oh, yeah.
But that isn't something you can just expect. You know, there are going to be times when you're sitting there for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours and nothing is happening.
Right. Yeah, and there's a lot of times too when you go in, you can actually use that as as a proof that there is nothing that is going on in that area, and that's something that I think that
Exactly. You
most
can debunk
investigators
that
feel
way.
like, yeah, most investigators feel like if they go in and they don't find anything that they failed as an investigator, I think that you've actually shown you're doing your job right.
Exactly.
Yeah,
You know, and we've never had that situation, fortunately. And I think that's a good thing too. But you know, if we ever did do an investigation or we came up with nothing or came up with very little to show for it, I don't think it would break my heart. You know, I'd be like, okay, well, there's just not much here.
we have, and actually, the one case that I can remember that really was kind of the epitome of why it happened, that where we turned absolutely nothing, was when we were there, we actually found the burned spoons where they had been using heroin in the house. And, okay, I know where your spirits are coming from. They're coming from the needle. You don't have a ghost problem, you've got an addiction problem, you know.
Hmm.
So, but, people have to realize that they're going to walk into, some bad time situations. I mean, it happens. You don't always get these nice looking places.
Yeah, you don't. You don't. And it's not always a nice situation. That's the other thing I would caution about, actually. But we've got about a minute left in this session, so I'm going to go ahead and start another one.
All right, buddy. Sure, man.
All right, one sec.